Hi, my name is Wilfrido Ramos, and I'm going to be talking about climate change and how it affects Puerto Rico. Climate change is a real problem that our world is facing. Many studies demonstrate evidence, but not many people believe this, and I, as a caring citizen, want to share this valuable information that shows the evidence of climate change. In Puerto Rico, climate change is noticeable. Puerto Rico has passed great consequences because of this rising in temperature, but I will further explain this along the presentation. First, I will present my primary research that consists on comparing temperatures. Lastly, I will present key points of information for climate change and explain the causes, the effects, the advancements, the consequences, possible solutions, and finally, a conclusion. What is climate change? Climate change is a change in the statistical distribution of weather patterns when that change lasts for an extended period. This period can be from decades to millions of years. Climate change, in simple terms, is the change of average weather patterns within the context of long-term weather conditions. This drastic change can cause many problems in the future for human survival and right now is affecting to a great degree. Further, I will present the key parts of climate change and how it affects Puerto Rico and the whole world. Climate change. How do we know? How do we know that climate change is real? Well, the search gathered by NASA states that the Earth's climate has changed throughout history, but most recently, the current warming trend is of significance because most of it is extremely likely to be the result of human activities since the mid-20th century, and is proceeding at a rate that is unprecedented over decades to millennia. We particularly know this because of the Earth orbiting satellites and other technological advances that have enabled scientists to collect that useful data. This collected data reveals the significant signals of a changing climate. My primary research. Well, my primary research is based on temperatures that I have gathered in the week of November, and then comparing it with last year's temperatures that I researched from the AccuWeather website, which has data of last year's temperatures of all the months of Puerto Rico. Last year's temperatures were very high in comparison, and this makes sense since there was a catastrophic hurricane that had passed, proving that these temperatures supplemented the Category 5 hurricane. So it is not a stretch to say that this was a fault of the global climate change. As you can see in 2017, temperatures were higher, and in 2018 are slightly lower. The causes of climate change. There are many causes for climate change. Most scientists agree the main cause of the current global warming trend is human expansion of the greenhouse effect, which is the process by which radiation from a planet's atmosphere warms the planet's surface to a temperature above what it will be without its atmosphere. Scientists have stated that certain gases in the atmosphere block heat from escaping. Gases such as water vapor, nitrous oxide, methane, carbon dioxide contribute to the greenhouse effect. Over the last century, humans have altered this greenhouse effect since the start of the Industrial Revolution. The burning of fossil fuels like coal and oil has increased the concentration of atmospheric carbon dioxide, which contributes to the greenhouse effect. Furthermore, the clearing of land for agriculture, industry, and other human activities has increased in concentrations of gases. In its fifth assessment report, the Intergovernmental Panel of Climate Change believed that there's a 95% probability that human-produced greenhouse gases have caused much of the observed increase in Earth's temperature over the past 50 years. Another contribution for climate change is solar irradiance, which I will speak further on. In this slide, you can see the representation of how it works, how the greenhouse gases work. You see here that sunlight passes through the atmosphere and warms the Earth's surface. This heat is radiated back towards space. The heat that the sun provides is radiated back to space, but that's not the important part. The important part is that most of the outgoing heat is absorbed by greenhouse gases molecules and re-emitted in all directions, warming the surface of the Earth and the lower atmosphere, which is what it caused the global climate change. This warming, this extreme warming of which the gases propagate is immense and causes the change in temperature. As I said, another contribution for climate change is solar irradiance. Studies show that solar variability has played a role in the past climate changes, but several lines of evidence show that the current global warming cannot be explained by changes in energy from the sun only. As mentioned, human involvement with the greenhouse effect is the primary reason for the drastic change in climate. The effects of climate change in Puerto Rico. There are mainly three effects that I noticed. First, the Hurricane Maria, the public health, and the rise of sea level of the coast. A most definite notice of climate change was the Great Hurricane Maria. This storm was supplemented by the warmer ocean temperatures that were caused by the rising of global warming. Also, it affects public health. A study from Pablo Mendez Lázaro proposed that the rising temperature associated with climate change have influence in the spread of infectious diseases. He also stated that since 1990, reported cases of dengue have doubled every decade. Furthermore, the greenhouse gases that cause climate change also pollute the air, contributing to increase of rate of stroke, heart disease, lung cancer, and chronic and acute respiratory diseases. Lastly, a significant effect of climate change in Puerto Rico is the sea level of the coast. I found a spatial analysis of coastal heritage sites below 20 meters in elevation in Puerto Rico, which was written by Paula Escura. Results of the analysis show that sites below 20 meters in elevation in Puerto Rico, 27 sites are inundated at today's high tide. 56 will be inundated by mid-century when assuming a 0.6 meter in sea level rises, and 140 sites will be inundated by the end of the century when assuming a 1.8 meter rise in sea level occurs. This study demonstrates the melting of ice in our oceans and causing a significant rise of sea level. The advancement of climate change. Climate change has progressed so much during the past 50 years that even if we stop emitting greenhouse gases today, global warming will continue to happen for at least several more decades, if not centuries. So that's the reason why climate change is unstoppable. The reason behind this is because it takes a while for the planet to respond, and because of carbon dioxide, which is the predominant heat-trapping gas that lingers in the atmosphere for hundreds of years. If humanity continues with no care of reducing the emission of these gases, global temperatures is on track to rise by an average of 6 Celsius. This is according to the research facilities in NASA. Some scientists comment that this track could cause a global disaster, perhaps causing an irreversible change that tip our climate into a new whole state. The following graph presents the current level of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere compared to the 1950 level. You can see that it's tremendous growth. It was a ridiculous growth. So the atmosphere right now is completely covered with carbon dioxide. This graph was presented by NOAA, the NOAA, and NASA used it in their research facilities. The following graph shows the progression of carbon dioxide between 2006 and 2018. You can see the immense progression of carbon dioxide in our atmosphere. The consequences of the advancement. Well, the consequences of changing the natural atmospheric greenhouse are difficult to predict, but certain effects seem likely. On average, Earth will become warmer. Some regions may welcome warmer temperatures, but others may not. Warmer conditions will probably lead to more evaporation and precipitation overall, but individual regions will vary, some becoming wetter and others drier. A stronger greenhouse effect will warm the oceans and particularly melt glaciers and other ice, increasing sea level. Ocean water also will expand if it's warm. contributing further to sea level rise. Meanwhile, some crops and other plants may respond favorably to increased atmospheric carbon dioxide, growing more vigorously and using water more efficiently. At the same time, higher temperatures and shifting climate patterns may change the areas where crops grow best and affect the makeup of the natural plant community. The advancements in climate change can cause increased heat waves, drought, the formation of great hurricanes, rise of sea level, reduced agricultural yields, and insect outbreaks. The solutions for betterment. Unfortunately, climate change is inevitable. The rate of the global warming is progressing is unstoppable, but that doesn't mean we can delay its progression. There are many ways we can accomplish this. Responding to climate change will involve a two-tier approach. Mitigation, which is reducing the flow of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. This can be successful if many corporations turn green and the production industry take a greener approach to production. Also, diminishing the use of fossil fuels and pursuing an eco-friendly way to collect energy using renewable ways. The second one is adaptation, learning to live with and adapting to the climate change that already is in motion, managing the changes in a way that benefits us, and taking movement to accomplish a way to live life. There's only one true remedy, and that will be if we reach a globally coordinated response and agreements between countries and push through cleaner forms of energy and local efforts on the cities and regional level. In conclusion, climate change is real and is affecting our lives this very moment. The people who believe that this is false are completely ignorant of the facts presented by all these official research facilities. The effect of the greenhouse gases has taken a huge toll on the earth, and I can safely say that it's even noticeable in this very island. Puerto Rico is evidence that if this sort of climate change continues, we'll be looking at an island that will confront multiple hurricanes during the upcoming years. This causing massive deaths and other consequences in health and economy. Also, the sea level rise will impact our social and economic system greatly. As presented, climate change is causing a major injury to our world. The rising of temperature is creating a huge consequence for many different species and environments, and especially our own. If we do not reach a global coordinated solution, we may have to suffer drastic changes in our lives that could result in many deaths. I believe there is time to find ways of living with climate change and limiting the creation of these harmful gases, but we need to act now so that we can prevent an irreversible change. In my final slide, I had the works cited. I used different documents from NASA, from Mike Lockwood and Judy Lean. Um, I wanted to say thank you for hearing this presentation. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you find it informative about climate change. And thank you for listening once again.